So welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about AP automation and payments within FE NXT and PaperSave. Just some really quick, agenda items. So we're gonna, I'm gonna do a quick introduction of myself. We'll talk about PairSoft, who we are, the challenges that we're solving for, how we're integrated with Blackbaud, and then what are next steps for us when it comes to AP automation and payments. So my name is Greg Dzurinda. I am the senior product manager for PaperSave. I've been with the company now just over 6 years. And prior to that, I was actually a client of PaperSave and did my own implementation of an AP invoice automation workflow. So I've been with PaperSave for quite some time now. So who we are, right? So PairSoft started as 3 leading market brands in the APIA space and the procurement space. That's PaperSave, Workplace, and DocuPeek. We were then folded into a pretty robust brand now called PairSoft. And then recently we've added some advanced functionality which allows us to do payments and analytics, which really kind of closes the loop on the full procure to pay platform. Just a quick snapshot of our G2 reviews there. We're not going to spend too much time on that, and then also some of the organizations that we already work with. So there's quite a lot of big names there, and some of these have been with us for quite some time as well. So some of the benefits that some of these companies have seen, just by implementing a AP invoice automation workflow, Nebraska has seen a 400% increase, ROI within the first 5 years, just with the automation that they put in with PaperSave. Then the World Wildlife Fund saw a drop in time spent searching for the documents that they're looking for. And then the University of Miami saw a pretty significant savings in how much time that their employees are spending going through that invoice automation process. So the problem that we're trying to solve, right? So something like this may look pretty familiar to you if you don't have some sort of automation for AP, right? An invoice comes in, you may have to forward it off to some people via email or internal paper mail. You have to make sure that vendor's been set up. You have to figure out how you're going to pay that vendor. You have to do research into vendor agreements or figure out how to get that entered into FE. So it's a pretty big mess, right, of a process if you don't have some sort of automation in place. And really that opens you up to certain fraud risks. Human error is a really big problem too that we see. So that is what we're trying to solve with our solution here. So when you automate your AP process, you can save on average $15 per invoice. And then a typical organization does lose about 5% of its revenue to fraud, right? That's kind of a scary stat there. But we've heard many stories of customers that have gone through that. The majority of the issues though that are in AP are due to human error, right? That's where it usually starts. And when it comes to your audits, right? That can have a huge impact. So you can get fined by showing auditors maybe too much or not enough, or maybe you can't find what you're looking for, right? And that's what we're trying to solve here as well. So we're trying to get you to go from it costing you $20 per invoice to $5, and we're trying to safeguard your organization from becoming part of that stat of like being hit by fraud. And like as far as it comes, or so like as far as your like audits, right? Like you can take that down from it taking days or weeks to like prepare for those to like being able to pull that information in seconds. So what are we offering, right? So like PairSoft is a streamlined a payables and like payment processing service. So like we're gonna take care of like everything from the time that the invoice comes in till the time that the vendor gets their payment. So like an invoice comes in, the coding and like the workflow, like routing those for like approval, um, getting it ready for payment and actually like making that payment to like the vendor, and then like making sure that um, that those payments are like actually going through to those vendors. So like when it comes to payments, right? Let's focus on that. What exactly are we talking about covering when it comes to PairSoft Pay? So yes, we are going to be actually paying your vendors. That payment can be whatever method that those vendors will like accept. We can do paper checks still if they won't like go through any other like electronic method. We can convert them over to like an EFT or like a virtual card. We're going to try to convert as many of the vendors as possible over to those virtual cards. Part of that is, which we'll talk about in a minute, will like affect rebates, right? We're also going to take care of any of those frontline payment operations that you're doing now. Like if a vendor has like a payment error, or like they gave you the wrong like EFT information or like anything like that, you're no longer going to have to work with that because we're going to take care of that for you. Now, since we are so like directly connected with FE, we're also going to be pushing those payment details into FE itself. So like you'll see that here like in a little bit. So like not only are we going to be like pushing the invoice in, but once you're ready to pay it, we're also going to input that payment information as well. Okay, so this is one example, right, of how we may process a like invoice from the time that you get it till the time it's paid, right? So like the email, it may come in from the vendor that has the invoice attached, or like maybe like you get it, like in paper form. However it comes in, you can like add it to our like workflow product, which I'll show here in a little bit. It may go to AP for them to like review it, put in GL coding, put in who needs to approve that invoice. Then it goes out to those like reviewers. Maybe it needs to escalate based off of certain dollar amount, like thresholds. And then like once it's ready, then we'll actually submit that invoice to the ERP, like to like Financial Edge. Okay. Once that process is done, it's not going to just end, right? Because now we have to talk about, like paying that invoice. So like those invoices are going to go into a queue where like they're going to sit there and wait for you to tell us when it's okay to pay that invoice, right? You're still going to have control over that. Okay. Once those invoices are ready to be paid, then they're going to be sent out for payments approval, possibly, right? Like this is all going to depend on your process and how you want to process invoices. So then like we can route it for any like approval process that you may need. Just in this scenario, like any invoice that's greater than $10,000, maybe we need to send it to the CFO before we pay it, right? Once all that has been approved, then we're ready to actually pay that invoice. We're going to send that invoice to our payment processor called Finexio. So they're the ones that are going to be like actually like processing the payment, and then like eventually drawing the funds from your bank account. Once that payment has been sent to the vendor, then we're also going to be creating the payment inside of like FE for you, and then that payment will show up as a normal payment, as if you paid it how you do now. Okay, so let's dive into the application now. So like this is PaperSave Cloud. This is our PaperSave like version 7 product. So like this is the home page where like users may go for the first time. Okay. I have a lot of different options on here. I'm going to focus though, like specifically on our like workflow product. Okay, so like everything is driven through our like workflow. Now, I'm an admin of this workflow, so I'm going to see everything that comes in through here, right? But by default, your like end users, your like approvers, they're only going to see the invoices that they are like assigned to like approve. Okay. So what I want to do now is I want to add some new items like to this workflow. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the new item right here. And that's going to take me to this screen here where I have a couple different options of how I get items into the workflow. So like if I have a directly connected scanner, I can just click scan now and that will feed items in, or like I can just drag and drop or select files, which will just open up my file explorer. So I'm going to go ahead and just select 3 invoices here, and I'm going to just drag and drop them in. Now, like what's happening right now is we're using OCR to read those invoices, and we are trying to pick out the vendor, the like invoice number, the invoice date, the amount, and like populate these fields on the right-hand side. So that process just takes a couple seconds, and then here soon we'll see those values fill in, as well as certain defaults that like we've set for like new items that come in. So that will pop up. Yep, there it is now. So then if I just click off here, so like it filled in the vendor for me here, and automatically populated the vendor ID, populated the default like remit to that's set on the vendor. Here's where it found the invoice number. Now like we also have some checks that happen too, right? So we are checking to make sure that you're not like entering duplicate invoices like into FE. Like this message would also tell me if there was a duplicate already going through the workflow, but maybe not in FE yet, right? So it's out for like approval, but not in like FE yet. So I'm just going to click dismiss on that. And I'm going to just change my invoice number because I use these invoices to demo every once in a while. Okay. And then I'm also going to enter a like invoice description. Now we do have some OCR functionality where like you can teach it to like pick up values that's on the invoice. Maybe for like this particular vendor, I always want this information here to show up in the invoice description field. Okay, so I can go ahead and just select that information there. I'm gonna go ahead and drag that in there, and then I can teach it to always pick up that information like every time we like OCR that invoice or like that vendor invoice. Like we found the invoice date from up at the top there, and then like automatically calculated the due date like based off of the payment terms, and then set the post date as well, and then the invoice amount down here. Now from here, I can choose who I want to like review this invoice. Who are the approvers, right? So maybe Bruno needs to approve this one. I'm just gonna select Bruno, click save, okay? And then I'm gonna keep going down. We also have the GL distribution here as well. So like any of these fields, by the way, which is pulling data that looks like it's out of FE, we are syncing that information out of Financial Edge directly. So like wherever you see these lookup icons, these are going to be lookups into data that is in FE. So maybe this is in office supplies, maybe this is a like different GL account. I can search for the correct one that I need, and then I can hit save and save that GL distribution. Okay. There's all kinds of other fields that we have here too. You may not need all these fields. I'm just going to go ahead and leave these all like as default for now. And I'm going to go ahead and submit this item into the workflow. And then it's going to take me to the very next one that I added because I dragged and dropped 3 items into this screen here. So first thing I'm going to do always is change my invoice number. I'm going to just type in a description here. And then I'm going to leave this one. Maybe I don't know who the reviewer is for this yet, but I want to get it submitted into the workflow so that I don't lose track of it. So I'm going to go ahead and just submit this item. And then I'm going to do the same thing here and change my invoice number. And I'm also going to change my invoice date on this one too, because I know that posting period is not open within my FE environment. So I'm just going to change that to today. Okay. And like you'll notice, like we keep defaulting these GL distributions. That is because we are pulling the default distributions that are set on the vendor record. So like if you do use that functionality within FE, we are pulling like that information in for you as well. I am going to add a reviewer to this one, so maybe I need to look at my like list of like approvers here. I'm going to go ahead and pick Sammy for that one and click save. And I'm going to submit. So I've gone through all 3 items that I had added, and it took me back to this screen. Okay, I'm going to just close out of this window here, and that's going to take me back to the workflow where I'm going to see those 3 items that I just added here. So like in this grid here, you'll see all those fields like that I had like entered there. You can also search it in this grid as well. So maybe I just want to see the Hiller invoices. I can just search for Hiller, and that'll bring up all of those items that match that search criteria. You'll notice there are 2 that are incompleted here. So these I had already processed through like the workflow like earlier today, and they're just showing up in the completed step of the workflow. I can filter down to just see certain steps of the workflow. So maybe I only want to see the review step. Okay, so like these are the 2 items, the one that I sent to Bruno and the one that I sent to Sammy. Now, like when Bruno logs in, he's only going to see the one that's assigned to him, right? He's not going to see Sammy's invoice. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and clear my step filter here. And I'm going to go ahead and open up the one that I did not fill in that like reviewer for. So right now that's in the AP review step. If I go back to the PowerPoint presentation here, so like right now we are in like this AP like review step. Those other 2 are in this like review step here. Okay. So like I'm going to go ahead and open up this one. Maybe this invoice needs to be reviewed by Angela. So I'm going to go ahead and just type in Angela, hit that, hit save, and I'm going to send that to the reviewer. These are where the action buttons are going to be up at the top right-hand corner. So these are going to, be those events that you can have run on these items to have them go to somebody else or to do something, right? So like from this AP like review step, we have an option as well to just submit directly into FE. So maybe there are certain invoices where you don't need to have them be approved by anyone. Certain like utility bills maybe that come in every month, and like you just get those entered so that you can get them paid, right? So like you can just submit those directly into FE. You do not have to send them for any like approvals. So I'm going to go ahead and send this to the reviewer. And it's going to take me to the next one in the list, but I'm going to go ahead and just close out of this. So I go back to the list, and now we see that all 3 of those are in that like review step. Okay. So let's say, maybe 2 of these were assigned to Bruno and he has access to these. He has the option to like approve them right from the grid, right? So if they have multiple invoices assigned to them, like they can approve multiples at the same time. Maybe they only need to really look at some of them, like only if they're over a certain dollar amount, but like other than that, he's okay with the data that he sees here, right? But for this scenario, I'm just going to go ahead and select all, and I'm going to click approve. Okay, and then I'm going to refresh my grid here, and all three of these went to the submit to FE step. So we're ready now to submit these items into FE. I'm going to go ahead and open up one of these so that I can show you. So let's say Tammy gets these and she's ready to do her data entry. She's going to look at them like one more time just to make sure that everything is correct. She can also look at the history and see who had approved that document. So right now it's saying that I had approved that document. We have detailed history though to see that, okay, like Greg approved that document, but it was really Bruno that owned it, right? So like we are tracking that if for some reason somebody has permission to like approve on behalf of other people, we are tracking that in the audit history. Okay. So like once she checks it, like everything looks good, she can click that submit to FE button. Okay. She can also do that from the grid as well. So I'm going to go ahead and select these other two and click submit into FE. Now, like what's happening here is we are going over the Blackbaud Sky API and we are creating those invoice records inside of FE. So that process can sometimes take a couple seconds. And you'll see that first one that we did came through, which was good. And let me just wait for the other two here. Should be any second. Meanwhile, while that loads, we can actually go into FE and like take a look at this one here. So I'm going to go ahead and just refresh this page so that my new invoices show up here. Okay, so you'll see it looks like that one was the high bridge one. So here is that invoice. I'm going to go ahead and open up that invoice and I am going to just view the full record here. So part of the integration with PaperSave is also our like direct integration from through like the marketplace, it's like within FE as well. So you'll see we have a PaperSave tile here, and then we have this document here. So like this is the document that we had like used to push that invoice information into FE. So I can go ahead and click that, and that will go ahead and open up that invoice, and I can also see that like workflow history, right? That I was the one that approved it, and then that Tammy was the one that had owned it and pushed it into FE. Okay, and like this was the transaction that we created inside of FE. Okay, we also have a really neat feature, which I think is great for auditors, where you can download the audit log, or sorry, the audit history. So if I click that option here, that will go ahead and like open up this item here where we see a detailed list of the profile fields, but then also the invoice image as well as the workflow item history. So like this is a really easy thing to just print the PDF and hand off to one of the auditors. All right. So if I go back now to my invoices here, I should see one of those other ones in here. So one of them did not go through to FE. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and open up that item and we're going to take a look as to why. So when I go ahead and open up this item, I go to the workflow, like item history. That was because I did not put a item description here. There are ways where we can make things required from the beginning, right? So it wouldn't let you submit that item into the workflow without that description field. Or at any point within the process, we can force that field to be like required. I didn't have that set on purpose so that I can show you what happens when something airs out. Okay, so I'm just gonna type in a like invoice description there, and I am going to resubmit that item into FE. Okay. So next thing I'm going to show is when we go to that payment review step, right? So now those invoices are in FE and we're ready to pay them. Okay, so they're going to be sitting in this payment review step, and you would be able to build your payment batch, kind of like you do now, where you select the invoices that you want to pay. You can group them by vendor, you can search by certain vendors, and you want to send them out for like review, where like maybe somebody has to approve those payments before they go out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select these 3 items, and I'm going to send them out for payment approval. Now I have fields set up within the workflow item that says all like payments need to go to Angela first. She's the one that needs to approve all payments first, and then anything more will go to Sammy. And that's more than that $10,000 limit, which I don't actually have one of those set right now. So once Angela approves these, that is when we are actually going to be sending that information to Finexio for them to process the payment. Now, that process does take up to 15 minutes for like Finexio to like receive that information. They're validating to make sure, okay, does this vendor or like is this vendor set up in our system? Do they have the necessary like payment information like to be able to pay that vendor? Like does like is it a duplicate invoice? Have we already paid this invoice? Like those are some of the checks that they're making, right? And if anything goes wrong during that process, they'll send back the error message, and we'll put those like in a specific step where we can help you identify what's wrong with those. Now, since that can take some time, I did push these 2 items in just a couple hours ago. And I wanted to show you what those look like within FE now. So that's going to be this first and last one here. So like you'll see, I push this invoice like into FE. If I go ahead and open up that and go to our PaperSave tab, you'll see, that document with the history just like before. Here's the workflow item history, but you'll see a lot more information here, right? So some of this is the information that we're getting back from Finexio on some of the specific payment details. Okay. Now, if I open up this invoice, sorry, like you'll see like the payment here. So like I can go ahead and open up that transaction and see like those payment details, just like you did before. Okay. And then like once like everything is fully entered and everything's like gone through on the Finexio side, we'll move that invoice to the completed step of the workflow, and then that is the end of the process. Oops, sorry, my like mic cut out there for a second. So like that's the end of the process there. Just so while we wait for those to process, because I do want to show you that those went through. Some of the other areas of like PaperSave that like we can use as well. So we do have a browse area. So like if you're looking for specific documents, right? Like we can, like browse PaperSave for those documents and search as well. So if I go to, let's say, accounts payable, I go to invoice, here are all of my invoice documents, and I can search based off of this metadata that's on the screen here. So if I do the same search criteria that I was doing just to pull up those invoices, what did I do here? Let's just search for Hiller here. Oh, sorry, I have the wrong database selected actually. Let me change that here. I think I do that every time. Here we go. So that's going to be searching all of these invoices to find like anything that matches those. So here's all of the invoices that I've created with that number in it. right? But you can do that search by vendor or like amount or date. It's like whatever you need to be able to find that invoice. You'll notice as well, there's a lot of other like record types that we support. Like that is because PaperSave is more than just AP like invoice automation. We also have document management. So from any of these records that we support, let's say the vendor record, you have the ability to add and view documents against those records. So if I go ahead and just open up one of these like vendors here, we have that same PaperSave tile that you saw earlier, which is all the way down here, and I have documents associated to this vendor, but I can also add new ones as well. And that brings me to that same, type of add document screen that we had when we were adding documents to the workflow. So it's a pretty seamless UI, no matter how or where you're adding your documents to. Okay, so that's why we see all these other different types of like records to like search against. Now we also have some more like advanced search capabilities as well. So I can go to our search area and I can actually search. Maybe I want to see all accounts payable invoices, and I'm going to add a condition here where, let's say, the amount is greater than $100. Okay, I can go ahead and click search, and that will bring up all of the documents that match that criteria. You can then like export this list to Excel, and then that Excel list is going to contain a clickable link as well. As soon as I like enable content here, so these clickable links will take you to those documents, and it also has all of that metadata that we had available to us to search by. Okay. Like these search criteria can also be saved, and they can be shared as well by like other people. So you can save your search and you can share that search with all like users. So if I want to load a like particular search, I can go in here and I can go to the advanced area, load save search, and here's all of those saved searches and who modified them last. Okay. So if I go back into my workflow now, and I see those 3 items are now in the completed step, I can go back into FE now, and I can go into my invoices, and there are all of those invoices that are now marked as paid as well, and they have the payment details. Some other functionality that we have, we do have some dashboard items as well. So like in the top right hand corner, we can turn this on to see more like of a dashboard view of everything that's in the workflow. One item that I didn't kind of share with you is I do have a filter applied to this workflow because I have a lot of items that's in this workflow right now. I have a total of 97 items right now. So like this dashboard view is showing me the details of those 97 items. Okay, out of those 97, 48 of them are not in the completed step, and then here's some details like about those items as well. We also have this dashboard here, which just shows you some details about how much you're pushing through that workflow, right? And who are your fastest approvers, who's your slowest approvers, and then like you can change some time frames that you want to look at that by. Okay. And that is really all I had. I believe we have some things coming in through the Q&A section. If you do have questions, please, like put them in the Q&A session. Happy to go through those and show more if we can.
Thank you, Greg. That was great. We do have quite a few. I've been trying to answer them at speed, but we'll start from the top. We have, as part of AP automation, is there an automatic email payment notification to vendors? So once they're paid out, do they receive an email?
We'll have to get back to you on that specifically because I'm not sure if that's an option. But like we can definitely follow up with you on that question for sure.
Okay. And to everybody else on the call, I know we have a ton of Q&A questions, so anyone we don't get to by the end, you will receive a personalized email regardless with an answer to your question. What if the approver, so what if the invoice approver is the one who codes the invoice? Is that possible?
Yep. So like, we can control when we want certain fields to be filled in, right? So like, if I want a field to be required at the time that I, add it to the workflow, like we can certainly do that. Oops, I double clicked instead of dragging. So I can make the field required at the time that we're adding it here. So like the little like red asterisk means that it won't let me submit this item into the workflow until it's filled in. But the GL distribution was not required at this particular step. I can make it required though before those reviewers can approve it, right? Because that's a common scenario, right? It's the like approvers that are going to know what GL codes those should hit. So like we can force them to enter it during those like review steps.
But what is the criteria used in PaperSave to find out that there's a duplicate invoice? So what in PaperSave is pinging people that it's a duplicate?
Yeah, so the default functionality is we are looking at vendor ID and invoice number, but we are aware that FE lets you configure that, right? So like if you have a different scenario and like you'd like us to include that where like you have FE set up differently, then like let us know and like we'll see what we can do there to like make that change.
And then someone, while you were talking, asked, did Greg just say that the invoice date cannot be for a period that's closed in FE NXT?
Correct. So the Sky API will not let us process invoices for closed periods. It won't let us enter those invoices unless the period's open.
Can invoices be sent back and forth between AP staff and reviewers? For example, if Sarah inputs an invoice and sends it to Bob for approval and Bob has questions on it before he'll approve it, can their Q&A with each other be done within PaperSave and recorded for future reference?
100%. So like when I look at this invoice here right now, it's assigned to Bruno. Maybe he needs to reject it, right? He can reject it, but it's going to force a comment here. So maybe he says, I don't know where to code this to, and then he clicks reject. Now, like when he like rejected that, that's going to go back to like the AP processor or whoever, to like get that question answered, and that'll show up in that history. So if I pull up that item ID here, so here's that item right here. Right now that's assigned to Tammy, and I can go into that workflow history and there's my comment right there. So it kind of acts as like a chat system as well. So she can say like, okay, like she may even go in here and fix it for them, or maybe she'll just tell him what account that it needs to go to. But I'm gonna go ahead and choose that one there, and I'm gonna say fix it for you. Remember your coding next time. So like just remember these comments though are like visible like after the fact too. So they are part of the like historical document as well. So
Yeah, it's like Facebook for invoices.
yep. So don't be
Um,
mean to people in those,
yeah. Someone asked, we have 4 projects that we have to allocate a proper expense amount to each project. Does PaperSave give me the option to break an invoice down between projects?
Yeah, so if I go ahead and clear this out and go back to some other items here, let me just stick to the review step here. So you can add as many rows to that GL distribution grid as you want. So let's say here we need to split this out to like a different project. I can add in my account. It's, you know, it could be the same account. And here we go. You know, maybe that needs to be $50, and I choose a different project that time. It needs to go to that one, and then I need to go back and maybe so that's telling me that that my distribution total doesn't match. So I'm going to, this is a really big invoice. I'm just going to change this amount to make it match. I think that works. Yep. Nope. I still can't math apparently. But I think you get the picture there. So we can add as many of those as we want. So like I know FE also has like those distribution sets that you can apply. We are working on a way to like facilitate that sort of functionality like within PaperSave as well. So if you're concerned about that, reach out to us and we can, talk through the solution that we have and how that would work in PaperSave.